All right, we are trying this again, guys. So last night we weren't able to do the what I got right, what I got wrong for the week. So I'm on here tonight and we're going to go through that right now, guys. We are going through what I got right and what I got wrong in week 6 fantasy football. I just tried to do this live stream like a couple minutes ago. So if you catch me afterwards, that's totally cool. I had some technical difficulties getting the live stream set up, guys. So if you guys appreciate this type of video that I do, you're not getting this from any other fantasy football analysts on YouTube. I every single week point out what I got right and what I got wrong in fantasy football for the week. And that's exactly what I intend to do for the rest of the season right now. Try to be as transparent as possible with you guys. So the reason it's live is because if y'all want to go ahead, y'all want to dunk on me right now, y'all want to make some, y'all want to add on some comments about what I got right and wrong, go ahead. Feel free to put it in the live stream right now, guys. But if you appreciate the transparency, please go down there, drop a like on the live stream, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. It is greatly appreciated, the support you guys give every day. I just hit 6,000 subscribers, and I have y'all to thank for that. I need your help to get to 7,000. So go down there, like I said, drop that like and subscribe to the channel. I'm giving away hats this week. So let's go ahead and start out with number one. So this has honestly been a long time in the making that this one has been. So over the offseason, for those of you who have been with me over the offseason, I appreciate you, first of all. Second of all, what's really important to note is that I came out and I did my first ever Dynasty rookie draft guide where I went over 80 plus rookies in the 2023 rookie class. And I also, gave a full breakdown on all those players. It came out to like 70 pages, I think. And I will continue to do that. It is available still on my website if you have interest in checking it out. I will continue to do that in future weeks. And what I said in there, and this is just being brutally honest, is that I have a very distinct appreciation for the wide receiver position. I played wide receiver in middle school and high school. Not saying I was any good. Obviously, I wasn't that good, but I pay very close attention to the wide receiver position. And so I feel very in tune with wide receivers and who are going to be good and who's not going to be good. And so I've developed my own wide receiver prospect model that has been very indicative of future fantasy football success at the wide receiver position. And so when I was developing that model, during the offseason, originally Jackson Smith-Njigba was always number one. Jordan Addison was number two, and Quentin Johnston was number three. And after the combine, and Quentin Johnston tested out as a more prototypical sized wide receiver and athleticism, he checked all the boxes and everything like that. But in that process, Jordan Addison came out and he tested not very well. So he was obviously, I think he came in at like 5'11" and like 170 pounds. So, pretty small. A lot of people panicked and they dropped him below Quentin Johnston based on that alone. And I always said at the time, I said, that's crazy. Like that, there's no reason to do that. If you're dropping him after the combine, that just shows that you're not paying close enough attention to football. Because there was a clear answer on who the better prospect was, and it was Jordan Addison. And I stuck with it. A lot of people didn't agree, and I said, let's just see how it plays out. And, of course, nobody's a bust yet. You can't declare anyone a bust. But this one's fresh on my mind since I just watched last night. Quentin Johnston, I called him a slow burn. And what I meant by that was I think it's going to take some time for Quentin Johnston to get going in the NFL. Mike Williams, same team, obviously on the IR right now, done for the season. Very similar type of player to Quentin Johnston. Well, if you remember, when he came into the league, it took him about 3 years to break out. It took a long time. And people were like, that's crazy. Like, Quentin Johnston's going to have a big year. And it's like, let's see how it goes. Quentin Johnston was not only not involved early in the season, but obviously, when Mike Williams went out, he was slated to get more work, and he's been terrible. Like on Monday night, he was bad, and he's just a guy that like I said, this is going to be a guy that if he works out, it's going to take years because he's very raw. He doesn't do anything tremendously well. He's the type of player that is big and he gets deep balls because he's got athleticism and he can box people out like a power forward in basketball. This is not a refined route runner. This is not a guy who goes over the middle of the field. He didn't do any damage over the middle of the field in college, and he was in the Big 12. Not exactly playing SEC level defenses here. So when I analyzed Quentin Johnston over the earlier portion of the offseason, I got a lot of pushback for my takes on him, and I stuck with it the whole time. And I said, I just don't think he's really. Not only do I think he's going to be a slow burn, and all that, I think that he's just really not that good. And again, like I said, it's just we're 6 weeks in. Like I'm not calling the guy a bust. He could very well rebound, and like I said, I would not be surprised if next year or a year later down the road he's a good player. It's going to take a while because this guy is not ready, and you saw it on Monday night. So Quentin Johnston, I just wanted to discuss him, and on that note, guys, over the offseason, this past offseason, and really every year during the offseason, I do film breakdowns on all these prospects, and I give my analysis because a secret in the prospect model I've developed, film breakdown is a massive thing when you're analyzing wide receivers in particular. I did it on YouTube for a while. YouTube actually gave me a warning, and I had those videos. I had to take down a lot of those film breakdown videos. So the likelihood that I'll be doing those videos on YouTube this summer or this off season is low. So if you do want to get that analysis and you do want to follow, I would highly recommend that you do. If you're interested in how these rookies are projecting and my process of the breakdowns and my analysis, I would highly suggest following me to an outsourced website like Patreon. I haven't decided exactly where I'm going to host those film breakdowns, but there will be a site where I do those breakdowns. So I would highly recommend, staying in touch. And once I kind of nail out how that's going to go, I'll let you all know. But to get into something that I got wrong. So this is something, again, this kind of dates back to the earlier portion of the offseason. And I came out with a couple videos about players that I thought were bust proof. And a lot of those guys, like some of them were right, some of them were wrong. This one is pretty, obviously, like he played on Sunday and he wasn't good. And I've been off of him for weeks now, and I really haven't said anything. But DeAndre Hopkins, I called him a bust-proof player, and I just said, look at the history of the guy. Like he's always been a target guy. He's always been a volume guy. He gets open. He runs good routes. Like he's a complete receiver, and I believe that still. But I really need to pay more attention and factor in the fact that he's just not a bad team. Like that, and that's the ultimate problem. DeAndre Hopkins had a great week in week 5. He came back and followed that up with a 1-catch performance for 20 yards. That's going to be DeAndre Hopkins' year. DeAndre Hopkins is simply not on a good enough team. That's the problem. So when I look at DeAndre Hopkins, when I look at a player who's going to be bust-proof, DeAndre Hopkins is anything but bust-proof at this point, because the ultimate problem here is that he's at a position that's dependent on a quarterback and on an offense. So, take someone like Drake London. Drake London's a good comparison. Drake London's coming off a really good week. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be big on Drake London moving forward. Not everybody's going to be in on him, but there will be people that love Drake London, the player, and are going to want to buy in. There's going to be a harsh reality with Drake London as well, because this quarterback sucks too. So DeAndre Hopkins, I was dead wrong on. DeAndre Hopkins is, like I said, I've been off of him for weeks. I just haven't said anything until now. If you can sell DeAndre Hopkins for any type of value, like if you can get like a Chris Olave or maybe, someone in the range of like Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson, like any kind of guy like that, maybe even Deebo Samuel, I would trade for him because I know Deebo's upside is higher. So to me, like there's several guys that I would trade DeAndre Hopkins for. And like, if you can get any kind of value like that, I would take that opportunity right now. So if you're just joining me, guys, I'm going through what I got right and what I got wrong in week 6 fantasy football. I do this every week to keep transparency between you and me. I want to make sure you guys know what I got right and what I got wrong so we can move forward as a community and do the best moves for the future, guys. If you appreciate these videos, please go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. You don't get this from many fantasy football YouTubers out there. Many do not call out when they're wrong like I do. So I would appreciate it if you would go down there, hit that like button and the subscribe button. And I just hit 6,000 subscribers, guys, and I have you to thank for that. So I'm giving away hats this week. I'm going to keep going through what I got right, what I got wrong. I'll answer a couple questions at the end, but we will have some more question and answer live streams coming up later on in the week if I do not get to your question tonight. Here's another thing that I got right. So after week 5, week 5 was a great week for the Chicago Bears. And really, week 4 was too. The Chicago Bears were rolling. Cole Kmet was rolling. Justin Fields was rolling. DJ Moore was rolling, man. I mean, DJ Moore had just come off a basically 50-point game, depending on the format you're playing in. He was excellent. And a lot of people were just like, it's time. Trust the process. You know what I mean? Like, the Bears are going to be good. And it's like, I remember talking after that video, and I ranked DJ Moore. I think inside like the top 13 or 14 last week of my wide receivers, and I caught a lot of flack for that take. I caught a lot of flack for that take. To be honest with you guys, like when it comes to DJ Moore, I said to sell him high after week 5. And not only was I right about that, but I really want people to remember this moving forward, because this applies to guys like Drake London as well and DeAndre Hopkins. Like, if you've got a wide receiver who is a very good talent, all of those guys check that box, and they have bad quarterbacks attached to them, it's a problem. It's a problem. And listen, Justin Fields is someone I have wanted to be good forever. I have been rooting for Justin Fields from day one. But the reality is he's not very good. He's just not. And listen, we could argue about this past week in particular, week 6, about, well, the reason DJ Moore wasn't good was because Justin Fields went down in the middle of the game. I hear that. I can understand that argument. But if you look at what he did with Justin Fields during that game, it wasn't good either. There's just a reality here with DJ Moore, and it's that when you look at the targets that he was getting, let's walk through this really quick. So DJ Moore right now is the wide receiver 3 in fantasy football. So when I'm looking at the top 5, I'm going to read off the guys: Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Adam Thielen. So what's the big difference between all these guys? I'm looking at it right now. So you've got Tyreek Hill with 59 targets, Stephon Diggs 66, Keenan Allen 55, Adam Thielen 59. DJ Moore's got 42 targets. He's been extremely efficient. Extremely efficient. That is not sustainable. In an offense like that is not consistent. The quarterback is so inconsistent. That stuff it's not sustainable. So I think for future, the important thing that stretches past DJ Moore is with wide receivers in specific, as the season goes on, you want to make sure that you have wide receivers with at least decent, consistent quarterbacks. Like Chris Olave is a great example to juxtapose this with, because Chris Olave is a guy that has been largely disappointing to me this season. And Derek Carr is largely disappointing as well. I will take Derek Carr's wide receiver in fantasy over Justin Fields, because Justin Fields has no consistency. He will pop off for big weeks like he did the previous 2 weeks before this past week. But he'll have absolutely tragic games as well. Not to say that Derek Carr doesn't, but Derek Carr at least consistently finds his wide receivers. Sometimes Justin Fields doesn't even, he looks like he can't even throw the ball. So this is, just something I got right, was selling DJ Moore. It was definitely the move, and I hope some of you did do it after that week. Here's something I got wrong, and this is something that I wrestle with. I can't tell you how much I wrestle with this player every single week. Like this is a guy I wrestle with every single week in fantasy football. Amari Cooper. Coming into last week, I said Amari Cooper is a guy that I'm looking to bench. Like I'm not looking to start him. If I can bench him and play a guy like I'm trying to think of examples. I can't think of any right now, but I said bench Amari Cooper. And and I said the reason is because like the last time he played without Deshaun Watson, he played with Dorian Thompson Robinson before their bye week. He was bad. And it wasn't like he wasn't important either. Like he was important, but it was just he got 6 targets in that game, but he only came down with 1 catch. I said the same thing's going to happen again this week. I don't care if it's PJ Walker. I don't care if it's Dorian Thompson Robinson. Obviously, I was wrong. And here's the simple fact about Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is a great player. I know he's hot and cold. I know there's weeks where he looks like he's not even on the field, but you know he is. Like he has more disappearing acts than any other player on his caliber because Amari Cooper, truthfully, is on the level of guys like DJ Moore. He's on the level of, guys like, you could argue that he's on the level of someone like, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know what I mean? Like CeeDee Lamb. Amari Cooper is a very, very good player. So to me, in future weeks, like Amari Cooper is a guy that most often than not, we just have to start. And I need to hold myself accountable to that because, like I said, I have called Amari Cooper a guy that I can't trust without Deshaun Watson. I have to address that because this guy just proved me wrong in a big way against a 49ers defense. Obviously, the NFL, anything can happen week to week, but Amari Cooper to me is a guy that, like, I have to tell you guys that we need to start him in most cases moving forward, regardless of if Deshaun Watson is there or not. Here's something I got really right. So obviously, for those of you who know, and for those of you who have been with my channel for the duration of the season so far, first of all, I appreciate you guys being very supportive. Second of all, you know that I do defense rankings every single week. I'm one of the only fantasy football YouTubers who does defense rankings every single week because I don't believe that defensive rankings should be behind a paywall. I just don't. They're too important for your fantasy success every single week to be behind a paywall. I think that's ridiculous. And for the future, guys, there will be a point where some content I do will be behind a paywall to give you guys full transparency, but defense rankings will not be in that category. I don't think top 12 rankings should be it behind a paywall. Period. End of story. I don't care what position it is. It's just not what I believe. It's too important. But I do defense rankings every single week. And so, I get some right, I get some wrong. But defense is something that I take very seriously in fantasy football because, like I said, this is the deciding factor in a lot of games. Like, I can't tell you the amount of not only fantasy football matchups during the regular season, but I've won championships based on defensive performance. It's important. So I take it very seriously, and I'm just a fan of football. So it's easy for me to sit down and watch a game and enjoy both an offensive scoring fest and a defensive struggle. I enjoy both of them because I love football. So defense is pretty easy for me to evaluate because I love it. And one defense that I honestly, guys, I was feeling very uneasy about. I'm not going to lie and say this was a surefire home run hit, but I said that the Raiders defense was a good start this past week. And I said at the video, I said the only reason they're there is because of the New England Patriots. And the Raiders defense was a great fantasy football play. And the Raiders defense, to me, if Max Crosby was not on that team, the Raiders defense would not have been on the list. That was responsible for one man. One man was responsible for them being inside of the top 12 of my defense rankings that week. So I don't love the Raiders defense moving forward. I'm not saying that the Raiders defense is some new development, but matchups are very important for defense, and momentum is very important for defense as well. And the Raiders were coming off a big win at the time. If you don't remember, they were coming off a big win against the Packers where they exposed Jordan Love. And I said, the momentum in combination with the great matchup and the horrible momentum that the Patriots have right now, It created the perfect storm for the Raiders to be a good defense to play, and they, in fact, were. So that's one that I was actually really proud about. Guys, I'm going through what I got right and what I got wrong in week 6 fantasy football right now. I do it every week. I usually do it on Monday night following the Monday night game. I ended up falling asleep last night after that game was over. So I'm doing it a day later, guys. But if you appreciate this type of live stream, not many fantasy football YouTubers do it. So if you do appreciate it, please go down there, show your support by going down there, dropping a like on the video, and subscribing to the channel. I appreciate y'all support every single day. I love talking fantasy football with you guys. You guys are awesome. We're building an awesome community here at Football Fanalysts Network. Here's the last thing that we're ending on right here. And I tell you what, this it hurts, but it's a good feeling, honestly, because a guy that I have just been like vehemently against, and not because I don't love the player, because I do, and I say it all the time. But I've been vehemently against Breece Hall since Aaron Rodgers got hurt. And my rationale for that is that when you look at bottom 7 teams over the past several years in fantasy football, there are a couple teams that had running backs that were top 20 running backs by the end of the season. And I was convinced, I was like, when Aaron Rodgers went down, if they're starting Zach Wilson all year, this is a team that I cannot trust a single fantasy option on. And it hurts to say because I love Garrett Wilson. You have no idea how much Garrett Wilson I drafted, not only in best ball leagues, but in redraft leagues too. I have got so much Garrett Wilson. You've got no idea. I've also got plenty of Breece Hall because I love the player. And I said, after that injury, and I've said it since the weeks, I've said Breece Hall is not a good fantasy option. I was wrong. Breece Hall, there's so many layers to this. Breece Hall is coming off, obviously, his second straight week of being a fantasy stud. And this was against a great Eagles defense. So when you look back to week 5, like when he busted the Broncos in the mouth for like 30 plus fantasy points, I was like, yeah, big deal. Like, it's the Broncos defense. We're not going to go crazy with Breece Hall here. Even though I would love to jump in, I can't. And after this week, I think I'm ready to jump back in. Doing what he did against the Eagles defense was awesome. And listen, like when you watch Breece, like when you watch the game, like he was not like super efficient. He wasn't all that special. Like he didn't dominate on the ground. He hit a couple big plays because that's what Breece Hall does. If Breece Hall is given the opportunity, Breece Hall is going to break off a couple big plays. And there's a lot of factors that lead into this Breece Hall change I'm making, which is that Breece Hall is coming into a situation in recent weeks where the team is just performing much better than I thought they would after Aaron Rodgers. And credit to Zach Wilson. He has definitely looked better over the past 3 weeks. I don't know what changed. Maybe he was just tired and the competitor came out in him with everybody starting trashing him. That's a great thing. If that fired him up, that makes me happy because it should make all of us happy as football fans because they're playing much better football. It's much more enjoyable to watch than it was in week 3, week 4, So it's been fun to watch. Second of all, a couple weeks ago, the Jets said the snap count for Breece Hall is over. He's not sharing the backfield with Dalvin Cook anymore. And not only was that the right move, but Breece Hall is now effectively getting all the work, and he's on a better offense than I thought they would be after Aaron Rodgers. So Breece Hall, I've been saying for weeks now, I don't like it. I think you should trade him high. I apologize for telling you guys that. Breece Hall is a legit stud in fantasy football at this point. The Jets still have a very tough schedule ahead. They've got plenty of plenty of tough opponents coming up, but the way the Jets are playing, their team morale right now is really high. And I love Breece Hall so much as a player. I think if the Jets can maintain decent offensive performances, Breece Hall is going to be a fantasy stud. So that's what I got right and what I got wrong in week 6 fantasy football, guys. Before I hop off here, I'm going to address a couple of questions, guys. If I do not get to your question tonight, just know that I will be doing a couple more question and answer live stream chats this week. So if I don't get to your question tonight, we've got some more shots in live streams later in the week. So let's go ahead and answer a couple. Trade Stafford with either Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, or Geno for Burrow. It's a 2-quarterback league. So you've got a super flex league here. You're looking to trade Stafford with either Purdy, T-Law, or Geno for Burrow. If you're getting rid of Stafford, I'm on board with that because Stafford and Burrow are actually similar fantasy players because they both make mistakes and they both have low floors sometimes, but Joe Burrow has the much higher ceiling. So I definitely prefer Joe Burrow. This is a move I would try to make with Matt Stafford and Geno Smith. I would not personally go ahead and trade Purdy. Purdy's been really good in fantasy football. He's a top 12 quarterback this year in fantasy football. Coming off a bad week, I get it, but I'm not trading Brock Purdy right now. Trevor Lawrence, I'm not trading him either. I'm banking on the upside that he shows. So if you want to trade Stafford, package them together with Geno, go for Burrow. That's the move I would try to make. I might butcher this name. Avion Fisher, I appreciate your super chat right now. What would you give up to trade for Lamar Jackson? He wants Alvin Kamara. I have Bijan, Eckler, Gibbs, Keenan Allen, Ridley, Devontae, Zay, London, Deontay Johnson. So you're trying to get to Lamar Jackson, and he wants Kamara. I'm curious, what are your other quarterbacks? Could you put your quarterbacks in the chat right now? Because this will help me determine where you're looking. Because to get it started, I'm not a huge Lamar Jackson guy right now. Lamar Jackson, of course he's got the upside. Of course he does. But Lamar Jackson's lows are low. Okay, you've got Kirk and Anthony Richardson. You're gonna have to end up dropping Anthony Richardson because reports I've seen, he's expected to get season-ending surgery. So don't drop him just yet if you don't have to, but expect that you will be dropping Anthony Richardson within the next week because he looks like he's done, which is really unfortunate. But you've got Kirk. So obviously Kirk is relatively similar to a Lamar Jackson in the sense of he has a pretty high ceiling. He obviously doesn't have the rushing upside that Lamar does, but Kirk can throw for 400-yard games because of garbage time. So I don't personally think that you need to give up an Alvin Kamara for him. I get it, you've got running back depth, and that's a great thing. I think if you want to get rid of Kamara, which I'm not saying that you do, but if you wanted to get rid of Kamara, I would go ahead and try to get way more in return than just Lamar. I would try to get Lamar and another middle end running back too. I would try to get someone in the range of let's go through some guys here that I would try to include on that. I would try to include someone like James Cook or Joe Mixon or maybe even Ramondre Stevenson in with Lamar Jackson personally. Because you've got stacked running backs right now. I don't think you need to give up Alvin Kamara for Lamar Jackson. I think that you could give up on your roster right now. I think that if you wanted to get rid of a Calvin Ridley or Drake London off a great week, that's the type of deal I would try to make. Kamara's got longer term upside that I think Drake London does. So that's what I would try to do. I would not sell Kamara for Lamar Jackson. Use the leverage you have at quarterback. And I know Kirk's been bad in recent weeks, but Lamar gives you just as many bad games as Kirk does. So just keep it in mind. I know it was a good week for Lamar, but Lamar is definitely capable of giving you bad weeks as well. That's what I would say. But again, man, I appreciate your super chat, man. Not only does it support me and support the channel, but it also gets you to the front of the line. So I appreciate it. Bangwin02YT, I appreciate your super chat right now. Start sit running backs. Start sit 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. I have Chase, T. Higgins, and Garrett Wilson on bye. Running backs are Jacobs, Rashad White, Ford, and Roschon. JT. Wide receivers are Olave, Christian Watson, Chris Godwin. Okay, so obviously you're going to play Jacobs. Jacobs is going to be one of your running backs that you're going to play for sure. Jacobs is, Jacobs has been much better than when he started. And I said that at the beginning of the season. I said that Jacobs was going to rebound at some point and he was going to play better football. He just needed to get back into a groove of things since he missed so much time in the offseason. So Jacobs, you're going to play him for sure. JT, I'm going to continue to play. JT, I get it. Like, not been great so far, but looking at last week compared to the week before when he came back, much better, much more involved, hit a big play. It's only a matter of time until JT hits a big game. And really, JT is on the Josh Jacobs trajectory actually at a faster pace, because if you look back to Josh Jacobs' first 3 weeks this year, they were bad. They were all bad. Like, there was no improvement. JT did improve. And JT is in a good situation because he's got a great offensive coach. Shane Steichen is the real deal. He's getting lots of their playmakers the ball in very efficient positions. So I'll continue to start Jonathan Taylor as well. So those are going to be my 2 running backs for sure. We're looking at, I'm going to start Olave. Olave, I'm going to continue to start because he's so clearly their best option at wide receiver. And I get it, it's not been great, but I'll take Chris Olave because he's a great player and he still gets volume. And then we will go ahead and go with Watson for sure. Watson's big play upside is there. Godwin is going to be, I think Godwin's going to be my flex. Godwin will be my flex here because, the Buccaneers, I just went over matchups today. The Buccaneers are playing the Falcons. I think that's a good matchup for Chris Olave personally. So, or not Chris Olave, for Chris Godwin personally. So I'll go with JT. I'll go with Jacobs. I'll go with Olave, Watson, and Godwin as your 2 wide receivers, 2 flex, or 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. Again, I appreciate your super chat. Not only do the super chats help support me and the channel, but they also get you to the front of the line and get your question answered immediately, guys. So I'm going to answer probably 2 more questions, then I'm going to hop off. I still have to make tomorrow's videos tonight, guys. It'll be a late night for me tonight. So please go down there and drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. It is greatly appreciated, you guys. Let's see what else is going on. A couple more questions we're going to answer right now. Accidental Genius, what's going on? Should I trade Jonathan Taylor and CeeDee Lamb for Devontae Adams? I currently have Hurts, Stroud, Bijan, Eckler, Pollard, Jonathan Taylor, Gibbs, Amari, Pittman, CeeDee, Judy, Laporta, Thomas. Okay, so I'm glad we're talking about Jonathan Taylor right now because I do want to get into Jonathan Taylor really quick. So, this is something that obviously, I knew this was going to happen after another subpar week from Jonathan Taylor. I knew that there was going to be people who were looking to, possibly, just sell him for whatever they could get, like off the big name, not necessarily panic sell, but sell him off the big name and see what they can get. I knew that we were going to talk about this, so I'm glad we are. Jonathan Taylor, to me, I'm imploring you guys to hold him. And in a lot of cases, I still think he's a good buy low candidate. Let me tell you why. So kind of what I was to piggyback off of what I was just saying in reply to Bangwin's question. Jonathan Taylor he was not with the team for most of the offseason, meaning that he was off the field for a lot of the time. And he was also he was not with the organization and not learning the offense. And he was not on the football field. That's a big deal because you can't, it's like I say with Calvin Ridley. It's like I've said with Michael Thomas. It's like I've said with Deshaun Watson. You cannot go an extended period of time off of the football field, not taking hits, not reacting to defenses, not reading offensive line blocks. You cannot go an extended period of time off of the football field and then put that player back on the field and in the same week expect greatness at the level they once did. It's just not realistic. Jonathan Taylor's in that situation. And the other reason is because Josh Jacobs is the same. They have such similar stories. Josh Jacobs, the first 3 weeks when he came back, if you guys remember, was terrible. Let me pull up his first 3 weeks in fantasy football because it was not good at all. Give me 1 second while I pull up Josh Jacobs' numbers the first 3 weeks. And keep in mind, Remember, Josh Jacobs was in a situation where he had just come back to the team, basically like a week before the season started, and he was just, he was bad because he hasn't played in a while. So Josh Jacobs, week 1 versus Denver, 19 carries for 48 yards, 9.1 fantasy points in full PPR. Week 2 versus Buffalo, 9 carries for -2 yards. The only thing that saved his week, 5 catches for 51 yards. Week 3 versus Pittsburgh, the week I thought he was going to break out, 17 carries for 62 yards. The first several weeks for Josh Jacobs were bad. And again, it's because he missed so much time. So this is exactly what we're seeing with Jonathan Taylor. And the reason that I say Jonathan Taylor is actually on a better trajectory than Josh Jacobs is because he has the exact same situation. And number 2 is that Josh Jacobs was not as good in his second game back as Jonathan Taylor was. Jonathan Taylor got a big play last week. He actually looked much better in his second week back. So to me, Jonathan Taylor is still a good buy low trade target because it's like with Josh Jacobs the first several weeks. People were ready to get off and just jump ship. Now he's producing good fantasy weeks again. So I think that we just need to be patient with Jonathan Taylor. And I think that also, keep this in mind. Like Jonathan Taylor, the reason that I actually like him better than Josh Jacobs right now is that Jonathan Taylor, his coach is excellent. Shane Steichen, I've been saying this really for weeks now. Since the season started, I've been saying this consistently. Shane Steichen, the head coach of the Colts, is the real deal. He is a very good offensive mind. You could just watch games. Like watching the game against the Jaguars, obviously they got killed. But his innovation on offense is the reason why Anthony Richardson was already looking like a top-tier player. Anthony Richardson looked great. And Anthony Richardson was a guy that completed 50% of his passes in his last year at Florida. To take a player of that caliber who's that raw and turn him into an already above 60% completion percentage is impressive. So I have a lot of faith in the Indianapolis coaching staff. I have a lot of faith in Jonathan Taylor getting back to who he used to be. I would not sell Jonathan Taylor. I get it. Devontae Adams is a great player and I think a good buy low trade target right now. But packaging Jonathan Taylor with CeeDee Lamb, I think that you're going above the value that Devontae Adams would return you long term. So I would personally hold on to Jonathan Taylor because I don't think you're going to get equal value for Jonathan Taylor at this point. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the night. Like I said, I've got to make tomorrow's videos tonight, guys. So please go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. I appreciate you guys every single day. And I will see you guys in tomorrow's videos. Peace.